First thing I want to talk about is actually nothing to do with Formula E, but it's sort of Formula E sidekick, side little spin-off series that they seem to be doing at this precise moment. Every good series needs a spin-off series, and Formula E have got one in the form of Extreme E. Now, I want to talk about Extreme E just because it sounds really interesting as a concept, and more Formula E drivers and Formula E teams are getting on board. I think Sam Birders, for example, he's joined the Drivers Club along with John-Eric Verne. John-Eric Verne might have also just put his own team in Veloce into the series. So Veloce Racing have signed up. You have HWA, who were in the Formula E last season. You've got Andretti, who have just signed up very recently. So a lot of Formula E teams in there, a lot of Formula E drivers interested. So, it might be, Jack, a really good little sidekick sideshow series.
Well, yeah, I know that it is also going to be broadcast definitely in the UK on the BBC. So yeah, it might get some attention. I assume that it will be exclusively Red Button. I can't see the odd race getting onto one of the main channels. But no, I like the idea of it. Because I do like a bit of rally. And yeah, they're going to some places where you don't really expect to go to. So yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, that's why I want to pick you up on actually, because they're not racing in just normal city centres. It's not like Formula E. But although it'd be quite hilarious if the spin-off show actually gets on the main BBC broadcast and the Formula E can't. But where you said though, they said they're going to be racing in places like the Arctic. You've got the Amazon rainforest. You've got the desert in Africa. They're going in the name, I suppose, but they are going to some pretty extreme locations. The ocean as well. I don't know. I don't think we're racing on water, but we'll obviously be racing pretty close to the ocean. So Ed, they've got some proper serious locations that might be quite interesting to actually watch a racing spectacle.
Yeah, because I think Alejandro Gag, who of course is the CEO and he used to be the CEO of Formula E as well, and he sort of stepped back a little bit to be the chairman in order to focus on Extreme E. And one of the big modus operandi was we're going to go to these remote places. A, because we don't have to ask too many people for permission to race there. So I guess that eliminates some of the problem I have formally in the city centre things, but also it's to draw attention to the effects of climate change. And they're going to travel to all the races on this boat, I think, called the St. Helena, which has been sort of modified to be more emissions friendly and stuff. But I think what we're going to move on to talk about now, Jack, like you said, is the format.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. I wanted to talk about the format of the actual show. So the first race actually is going to take place in Dakar in 2021 on the 23rd to the 24th of January. But the race format is something that's come into question. I've sort of read about it. When I first looked at it, I thought it was quite complicated. But as I've sort of gone through it a bit more, it might be still slightly complicated, but a bit more. I understand it a bit more. So I suppose when you read something more and more, you end up clarifying its meaning. So what it seems like, boys, this is this format. So they've got a qualifying system. It seems like this hasn't been confirmed though. I haven't from the website. There seems to be. I don't know if there's going to be like a qualifying race. There's going to be or just a qualifying session around the circuit. And plus, we don't know how big these circuits are going to be because we were hypothesizing rally or rallycross sort of styles, which make it completely different to what we've seen electric vehicles do. So what it is, they'll do a qualifying, and the top six will qualify to a semi-final. So they will go through to the semi-final, and that will be split. Whoever qualifies first, second, and third seems to go into one semi-final. Fourth, fifth, and sixth go into a second semi-final. But if you qualify from 7th to 12th, you will be in a crazy race. So then that crazy race will happen first, and only the winner of the crazy race will progress to the final. And then the top two in the semi-finals will then progress to the final. So then you'd have 6 cars in the final, and then from there on you'd have your race for the grand winner. So I feel like it's a hybrid system of a rallycross sort of heat system, Jack. It seems like it's not a heat system, but it's very much like a heat system, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite complicated when you first get it explained to you, as I proved just off air about 5 minutes ago when you had to explain it to me about 3 times, and then I had to write it down. Yeah, they might. I would expect that they'd probably be about 4 or 5 kilo. Anything up to about 10 kilometers. I wouldn't expect anything more than that.
Because that's the question I think I have in terms of Extreme E at the moment, Ed, is just, you know, we were talking about a rallycross section, but rallycross tracks are quite short, so you can get lots of heats in. We don't know. They're going to these extreme locations. That's why I thought a rally stage would be amazing to see, you know, environmentally, I can't say the word, but friendly cars going around the Amazon rainforest, for example, or going, you know, around these Arctic locations. But if you've got a long stretch and it is like a massive trail, then, you know, that would be pretty interesting. Whereas I think if you go for this system, it has to be some sort of circuit based, whereas it's not just from front to back, because you need to get a winner. So, and you probably have to do a couple of laps. I don't think you'd be racing on a nature trail, but I won't say it's a nature trail, but you are using nature to sort of make the track, I suppose. When you go to the Arctic, you've got all the space in the world, but if you're racing in the Amazon rainforest, you know, you shouldn't be chopping down trees to make a racetrack. Like, you've got to use what you've got in front of you.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if they did end up doing that, to be honest, because it would sort of go completely against the ethos of the series and the whole sort of selling point of it, as I said earlier. But a couple of things. I actually seen the Odyssey EV at Goodwood Festival of Speed, did a few show runs, and it's this really big SUV. I think Agag was there helping promote it. I looked at Williams Advanced Engineering are doing the batteries. So they did the batteries in the Formula E cars during season 1, if you remember, season 1 through to season 4 in the Gen 1 car. And so I wonder if maybe the circuit-based thing I think it's either two things. It's either to do with the range of the batteries that Williams can do. If they got the same range as, say, McLaren Advanced Technologies Gen 2 battery. Also, it could be to do with the TV formats. We've got the BBC and several other countries doing live coverage, of course. And if it's just rallying in the desert from like point A to B and it takes several hours, then that's not exactly TV friendly. So it's more knockout style format with the crazy race. I love that because we know nothing about the race other than that it's crazy. So is it like all the drivers get heat stroke in the desert and that just goes them a bit loopy? I don't know. But yeah, so
that's a really good point, actually, because you say the crazy race. So it's a crazy race. So, you know, you want to go into this race thinking that something crazy is going to happen because you.
I guess it's sort of because if you don't win the crazy race, you're out. So everyone's taking crazy risks to win, I guess, is the implication. But
I would like to ask: Is it actually officially called a crazy race? Is it just the name that we've given it?
No, on their website, it's officially called the Crazy Race. I didn't come out with that term for no reason. I'm just gonna call it the Crazy Race.
Basically, you just looked at it, thought, I've got no idea what's going on. I'm calling it crazy. I'm ousting Extreme E right here.
Pico, don't eviscerate Jack on the Jack show. That's not good.
That's hilarious. No, I think discussing it, I suppose what we need to find out now, obviously we're 23rd of April, so there's still a few months away until technically this gets underway. So what we want to know now is, obviously the first race is in Dakar now. They're not going to use the full Dakar rally stage. Obviously the Senegal desert there is a huge space, so whether or not they make a circuit or a big enough circuit, and I don't think, like, if it was a rally stage, I don't think it would go on for hours, because obviously, you know, I reckon a 3-minute stage might be quite interesting, and then you'd have 2 or 3 cars on the stage at the same time, so you can flip back and forth to see who's going fastest. Maybe that could be how they do qualifying, for example. But we don't know. And then if you race on that, then that's difficult as well, because obviously that's the thing I have, is how big are these tracks in terms of these cars? As you said, when you saw them at Goodwood, and I think we've all seen them. If you haven't seen them, you know, maybe we'll put a picture up. But it'd be great, you know, they're so big. So racing, getting a car side by side in a place like the Amazon rainforest, for example, would be incredibly difficult. So I'm interested to see how it all works around in those sort of locations, because of course if you go to the Arctic, if you go to the desert, you've got all the space in the world to create whatever you want to create. But if you go to the Amazon rainforest, it's going to be a completely different beast, Jack, to sort of prepare the car for.
Well, yeah, and I think that's one part of Extreme E that's quite exciting, because we do have so many different locations. There will be so many different so many different scenarios to plan for, and so many different climates. It's not like Formula E or any other like motor racing series when we go to it when we go to each country at its peak point. In terms like weather, weather is nice, and yeah, so it's going to be exciting from that point. The rainforest, well, it might rain there. I'm going on a hunch. It might rain. And then the Arctic will be will be minus temperatures, and then you go to the desert, which will be 40 plus degrees. It's going to be insane to see what the different scenarios are, and I think that's going to play a part in terms of how unpredictable it's going to be.
I think, though, honestly, Ed, to sort of wrap this up, I think we can agree the format's quite complicated. We don't know how it's going to work, though. There's still questions that we have in terms of how long these races are going to be, what the tracks are going to be like, and I suppose that's what we've just got to look out for. But I think, as a whole, this series could be so important to the development of electric vehicles, because obviously electric vehicles are going to be all around the world, hopefully one day, and they're going to have to be faced with these cold conditions, these extremely hot conditions, and they've got to work. So the Extreme E Series could be as beneficial as Formula E in terms of pushing forward electric cars.
Oh, I agree, absolutely. And of course, a couple of years ago, there were rumours that World Rallycross was going to go electric, and then the teams kind of vetoed against it. So it's great to see finally there's some development on that. Two things very quickly that interest me. Veloce Esports have hired Adrian Newey, yes, star F1 designer Adrian Newey, on their team, who's well known for like his big aero developments, also just building like fantastically ambitious cars. So it'd be interesting to see how they end up using his talents. And the other thing that interests me is that apparently the Extreme E people are planning to do a Netflix-style documentary following the series. So I guess that'd be the thing that comes to mind there is instantly Formula One's Drive to Survive series. So that would be a great way maybe of introducing us to these personalities that some of us already know from Formula E, but the general public might not know, say, Sam Bird, Billy Monger, Jamie Chadwick, James Verne, etc., quite as well as we do. So.
And maybe a bit ahead of the game with Formula E in that sense, with their "And We Go Green," and We Go Green, to pardon the pun, has never gone green in terms of actually starting or actually anyone actually seeing it. So, and maybe that could be a wake up call for Formula E to maybe actually follow the trend and maybe go on Amazon rather than Netflix or
show us the film.
Yes.
Release the cut.
Yeah, but they haven't yet, and no one's seen it. So maybe that's something maybe Formula E could look to, sort of either putting that film somewhere on Amazon or Netflix, or creating a new documentary about Formula E, because it'd still be interesting, even if we were doing one now, for example.